Welcome back, class 10, your civics revision class. Today we will discuss some questions and answers from chapter 3, the Union Executive, Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Questions which I am discussing are important, but they are not the only questions which are important. So the whole idea of discussing questions and answers is to give you a rough idea of what type of questions are generally asked in your ICSE. So it is take it as a guideline. It is not that only these questions will come, nothing will come which I have not said. The whole utility of this class is that I am giving you a rough idea of what type of questions ICSE has asked previously and what type of questions you can expect in your examination. So starting off, how is the Prime Minister appointed? The Prime Minister is appointed by the President. The President invites only that person to be the Prime Minister who is the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha. But when no single party gets a majority, the President may invite the leader of the combination parties constituting the majority of the Lok Sabha. Who is the constitutional head of the Union government? The Prime Minister is the constitutional head of the Union government. So if a question is asked, who is the constitutional head of the Union government? Just don't write Prime Minister. Right? The Prime Minister is the constitutional head of the Union government. This is the full answer. Who is the head of the Union Council of Ministers? The Prime Minister is the head of the Union Council of Ministers. What is the term of office of the Prime Minister? 5 years is the term of office of the Prime Minister, but he has to resign if no confidence motion is passed against his government before his tenure is over. By whom is the Prime Minister appointed? The Prime Minister is appointed by the President. If a non-member of the Parliament is appointed as a minister, what can he do? A question might come like this. Can a non-member of the Parliament be appointed as a minister? Question mark. If yes, write the condition. Or under what provision can a non-member of the Parliament be made a minister? The answer is yes. A non-member of the Parliament can be appointed as a minister, but he must be elected or nominated to the Parliament within 6 months. Mention two methods which are adopted by the President to control the executive. Sorry, my mistake. Mention two methods which are adopted by the Parliament to control the executive. The Parliament can move a vote of no confidence, and the Parliament reserves the right to ask questions with regard to the policies of the Union government. Under which circumstances can the President use his discretion in appointing the Prime Minister? When no single party gets a majority in Lok Sabha, then the President exercises his power of discretion in appointment of the Prime Minister. Mention the categories of ministers in the Council of Ministers. The categories of ministers in the Council of Ministers are: number 1, the Cabinet Ministers; number 2, Ministers of State; number 3, Deputy Ministers; and number 4, Parliamentary Secretaries. Explain the term joint or collective responsibility briefly. The Council of Ministers is jointly or collectively responsible to the Parliament. Once they have reached a decision after full discussion with the meeting under the Prime Minister's chairmanship, all the ministers must defend it inside the Parliament and in the public. What is the term of office of the Council of Ministers? The term of office of the Council of Ministers is 5 years. Okay. How is the Prime Minister a link between the Council of Ministers and the President? The Prime Minister informs the President about the decisions of the Cabinet. Ministers cannot discuss any matter of national policy directly with the President. Okay. Name two important functions of the Prime Minister. Number 1, selection of and dismissal of ministers and presiding over the cabinet meetings. What is meant by the cabinet? The cabinet refers to a small but important body of senior leaders of the party who are included in the Council of Ministers. One question can come: what role does the cabinet play in formulation of policies of the government? Or mention two important functions of the union cabinet. Same thing, same. The question is the same. The cabinet formulates both external and domestic policies of the government. And number 2, it takes decisions in the matter of defense, security needs, economic policy, president's role in a state, formation of a new state, industrial policies, imports, etc. This type of question, they are generally not asked in the ICSE, but it's an interesting question nevertheless. Can the Prime Minister use the dictatorial powers? Give at least 2 reasons for your answer. A Prime Minister can't use dictatorial powers as there are many checks on his authority as given. Number 1, the public opinion and the constant need to keep it in his favor. And number 2, a free and well-established press and other agencies of the media will keep a watch on him. By whom and on whose advice is the Council of Ministers appointed? The Council of Ministers is appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the link between the Cabinet and the President. Justify the statement by giving 2 examples. Example 1 is, as we have discussed previously, the decisions of the Cabinet are conveyed by the President through the Prime Minister. And number 2, it is on the advice of the Prime Minister that the President summons and prorogues the Parliament. How is the Union Cabinet formed? The Union Cabinet is formed by the Prime Minister. It consists of the senior ministers holding cabinet rank and important portfolios. What procedure must be followed if a no confidence motion is passed in the Council of Ministers is passed to the Union Legislature? If a motion of no confidence is passed, the government has to resign and general elections are held. Once a question came, what is the significance of the resignation of the Prime Minister? So, the significance of the resignation of the Prime Minister is that if a Prime Minister resigns, then the whole Council of Ministers becomes non-existent. If the Prime Minister resigns, then the Council of Ministers is dissolved. There is no ministry. An election has to be held. Okay. Which body formulates the foreign policies of India? The Union Cabinet. Who administers the oath of office to the Council of Ministers? The President administers the oath of office to the Council of Ministers. What is understood by the term individual responsibility in parliamentary democracy? If a minister has taken a departmental decision independently in the best of the interests of the department, then he is individually responsible to the President, practically to the Prime Minister, who can ask him to resign from the office. A concerned ministers act accordingly. So, these are short type of questions, and in structured questions which can carry 3 or 4 or 5 marks. these questions can be: mention 3 important functions of the Prime Minister, or the Prime Minister is the captain of the ship of the state. Discuss the statement with regard to the Prime Minister's relation with the Cabinet, or describe the composition of the Cabinet under the following headings. Number 1, designation of the Prime Minister, appointment of the ministers, oath of office and secrecy. Or a question can come, which came in 2019, discuss the power and the functions of the Cabinet under the following headings. The headings are formulation of policies, implementation and administration, coordination and diplomatic relations. In 2015, a question came, discuss the salient features of the Cabinet system of government with special reference to number 1, collective or joint responsibility, and number 2, individual responsibility. Very, very important. This is also very important. Discuss the organization of the Council of Ministers and discuss the following: categories of ministers. That means categories of ministers means cabinet ministers, ministers of state, deputy ministers, and parliamentary ministers, parliamentary secretaries. And number 2, portfolio of the ministers. And number 3, term of the Prime Minister and other ministers. So these are various type of questions. Then a question can come, the Cabinet holds a pivotal position in the working of the Indian parliamentary government. In this context, discuss the following: number 1, the formation of the Cabinet; number 2, any 2 administrative powers of the Cabinet; and number 3, any 2 legislative power of the Cabinet. Bring out the distinction between the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet. So these are the various types of questions which I have discussed, which are important from this chapter. These types of questions are generally asked in your ICSE. So go through your chapter, revise it, and see which portions are there in your ICSE for 2021 exam. And after marking out those portions, see what type of questions are asked and can be asked, and memorize them and study well. That is all for today. Thank you.